I am Lisa.
And I'm Eric. Do you want to improve your English easily? If so, you're in the right place.
Okay, today we'll listen to a podcast about learning English without a teacher.
Let's listen to it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah. Today we're talking about something that might surprise you: learning English without a teacher.
That's right. Many people think you need expensive classes and fancy books to learn English. But is that really true?
I don't think so, Alex. I learned French mostly on my own, and I'd like to share that experience with our listeners.
I'm sure many of our listeners are curious about how to learn English effectively.
Well, I studied French in school for 8 years. I did all the homework and even extra grammar exercises on weekends.
Wow, you were really dedicated.
Yes, but here's the shocking part. When I moved to France, I could barely order a coffee, and the French word for coffee is café, almost the same as in English.
That must have been frustrating after all that study time.
It was. I spent so much time and money learning French, but I couldn't actually use it in real life.
So, what was the problem?
I was treating language learning as a passive activity. I went to class and did homework, but I didn't make it part of my daily life.
I think many of our listeners might be in the same situation with English. They take classes and watch videos, but when it's time to speak, they feel stuck.
Exactly. And then they wonder why learning English is so difficult.
So, are you saying teachers aren't helpful?
No, not at all. Teachers can be very helpful. I am a teacher myself, but many learners put all the responsibility on the teacher.
I see what you mean. People expect the class or textbook to magically make them fluent.
Right. But fluency doesn't come from a teacher. It comes from you. Language learning needs to become part of your daily life, not just something you do once or twice a week.
So, how can our listeners make this shift?
First, find your real reason for studying English. If you're learning just because you think you should, you'll probably never become fluent.
That makes sense. We don't spend time on hobbies we don't enjoy, right?
Exactly. Language learning is the same. It has to matter to you personally.
Can you share how you improved your French?
Sure. Everything changed when I got a job with a refugee agency. Many of my clients came from French-speaking Africa. Suddenly, French wasn't just a hobby. It was a tool I needed to connect with people.
So, your motivation became helping others?
Yes. I wanted to make people feel comfortable and build trust. That's hard to do if you expect others to adapt to your language.
And that gave your learning purpose and motivation.
Exactly. I didn't become fluent overnight, but it started me on the journey to mastering French.
That's a great story. So, what would you say to our listeners about finding their motivation?
I'd ask them to think about why they're learning English. Is it for work at an international company, to travel, make friends, or watch movies without subtitles?
And once they know their reason, should they keep it in mind?
Yes. When you read an article or listen to a podcast in English, remember why you're doing it. That will help you show up every day and do the work.
And then you'll start taking more responsibility for your learning instead of relying only on teachers.
Right? A good teacher can give structure and support, but they shouldn't be your only source of English.
That's an important point. No single teacher can represent all the different types of English around the world.
Exactly. And today, we have so many free resources. podcasts like this one, YouTube channels, audiobooks, TV shows, apps, and online language partners.
So, once you find your motivation, you should surround yourself with as much English as possible.
Yes. The more you do this, the faster you'll improve.
I'd like to ask about specific strategies. What daily habits would you recommend to our listeners?
Great question. I suggest starting small. Maybe begin with 15 minutes of English content every day. A short YouTube video, a few pages of a simple book, or even this podcast.
That sounds manageable. What about speaking practice?
Speaking is crucial. You can talk to yourself in English while doing chores, record yourself speaking, or find language exchange partners online. There are many free apps where you can connect with English speakers who want to learn your language.
I've heard some people keep an English journal. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Writing a few sentences every day about your life or thoughts is excellent practice. Don't worry about making mistakes. Just write.
What about common obstacles? Many listeners probably feel shy or afraid of making mistakes.
That's normal and happens to everyone. Remember that making mistakes is how we learn. Native speakers usually appreciate when someone tries to speak their language, even with errors.
And what about those days when motivation is low?
We all have those days. That's why having a strong personal reason for learning is so important. On tough days, remind yourself why you started. Also, make learning fun, watch shows you enjoy, or read about topics you're passionate about.
I think consistency is key.
Definitely. 10 minutes every day is much better than 3 hours once a week. Your brain needs regular exposure to build those language connections.
What about setting goals? Should listeners have specific targets?
Yes, but make them realistic and measurable. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent, try, I want to understand my favorite TV show without subtitles. Or, I want to have a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker.
That makes sense. Small victories keep you motivated.
Exactly. And celebrate those victories. Did you understand a joke in English? Did you have a short conversation with a tourist? Be proud of yourself.
Any final advice for our listeners, Sarah?
Remember that a teacher is just one tool in your language learning toolbox. If you're serious about improving your English, don't wait for someone else to guide you step by step.
Instead, build habits and make English part of your daily routine.
And be consistent. That's the key to success.
Great advice, Sarah. Thank you for sharing your experience with us today.
My pleasure, Alex, and thank you all for listening.
We'll be back next week with another interesting topic. Until then, keep practicing your English.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
What did you think about that podcast, Eric?
I liked it. Sarah's point about finding your real motivation was spot on.
Yes. Our followers should make English a part of their daily lives.
Absolutely. I hope they liked the podcast.
I hope so, Eric. Okay, let's start with today's word. What are today's words, Eric?
The first word today is obstacle. Then we will continue with to be dedicated and to adapt. Then barely. And the final one is to recommend.
Okay, let's start with the first word.
The first word is obstacle.
Obstacle.
An obstacle is something that makes it difficult for you to go somewhere or to achieve something. It's like a block in your way.
Ah, so like a problem or a difficulty that stops you.
Yes, Lisa. For example, if you want to learn guitar, maybe finding time to practice is an obstacle.
That makes sense. So I could say, lack of money was a big obstacle to starting my own business.
Perfect example, Lisa. Or he overcame many obstacles to become a successful athlete. You might also hear it used for physical things like there was a big rock in the road, a real obstacle for the cars.
So it can be a real thing you can see, or a problem like time or money.
Yes, it's a noun. We often use verbs like face, overcome, or remove with obstacle, like we faced an unexpected obstacle, or she managed to overcome every obstacle.
Do we need a special preposition after it?
Often you'll hear obstacle to something, like in your example, an obstacle to starting my business, or the main obstacle to progress is lack of funding.
Okay. Obstacle to something or obstacle to doing something. Is it formal or informal, Eric?
Obstacle is quite neutral. You can use it in everyday conversation, but also in writing or more formal situations. It's a common word.
Got it. Okay, well, we've explained the word obstacle pretty well. Now, let's move on to our next word.
Let's do that. The next word is to be dedicated.
To be dedicated.
When you are dedicated, you give a lot of your time and energy to something because you think it is very important. It means you are committed and focused.
Like being really serious about something?
Yes, exactly. For example, she is dedicated to her job. She works very hard. Or he is a dedicated father who spends a lot of time with his children.
So it shows strong commitment. Could I say, our teacher is very dedicated. She always helps us after class.
That's a great example. It shows the teacher cares and puts in extra effort. We often use dedicated with the preposition to. So you are dedicated to something or to someone.
Dedicated to. Like dedicated to my studies or dedicated to helping others?
Perfect. Now, if a verb follows to, it usually takes the ing form. For example, he is dedicated to improving his English, or they are dedicated to protecting the environment.
Ah, so dedicated to doing something. Good to know. How about formality?
To be dedicated is generally positive and can be used in many situations. It sounds quite good in both spoken and written English, maybe slightly more common when you are admiring someone's effort.
Okay, so dedicated to something, or dedicated to doing something. It means being very committed.
That's the idea.
Okay, well, I think now our followers understand the phrase to be dedicated better. Now, let's move on to our next word.
Sounds good. The next word is to adapt.
To adapt.
To adapt means to change your behavior or ideas to fit a new situation. It's about being flexible and changing when things around you change.
Oh, like when you move to a new country, you need to change how you do things?
Exactly. That's a perfect example. You could say, it took me a few months to adapt to the new culture. Or, animals need to adapt to changes in their environment to live.
So, it's about making some changes. Could I say, our company had to adapt its strategy when the market changed?
Yes, that fits perfectly. Businesses often need to adapt. We often use adapt with the preposition to. You adapt to a new situation, a new place, a new challenge. But if a verb is used with adapt, we should use ing form. For instance, we had to adapt to working from home.
Okay, so adapt to a situation or adapt to doing something. Is it formal or informal, Eric?
To adapt is quite neutral. It's used commonly in everyday conversation, in business, science, and writing. It's a very useful verb.
I see. So, to adapt means changing to fit new conditions.
You've got it, Lisa.
Shall we move on to the next word?
Let's do that. The next word is barely.
Barely.
Barely means only just or almost not. It suggests a very small amount, or that something almost didn't happen.
So if I say, I barely slept last night, it means I slept very little.
Yes, very little sleep. Or, he was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open. It means it was very difficult for him to keep his eyes open.
Okay, so it emphasizes how small something is, or how difficult it was. How about, there was barely enough food for everyone?
Perfect. That means there was just enough food, maybe not quite enough. It's often used before a verb, like, I barely know him, meaning I almost don't know him, or she barely passed the exam, meaning she passed but with a very low score, almost failing.
Got it. Any grammar points here? Does it need a preposition?
No, barely is an adverb. It doesn't need a preposition.
Okay, no prepositions. And formality?
Barely is very common in spoken English and is also used in informal and neutral writing. It's quite standard. You'll hear it a lot.
So barely means almost not or only just, like, we barely caught the train.
Exactly. You almost missed it.
Okay, well, I think now our followers understand the word barely better. Now let's move on to our final phrase for today.
All right, our last one is to recommend.
To recommend.
To recommend means to suggest that someone or something is good or suitable for a particular purpose or job. You tell someone that you think something is a good idea.
Like when a friend tells you about a great restaurant?
Precisely. Your friend recommends the restaurant. You could say, can you recommend a good hotel near the airport? Or, my doctor recommended getting more exercise.
So you suggest something because you think it's good. Can I say, I highly recommend this book. It's fantastic.
Yes, highly recommend is a very common way to give a strong recommendation. Good example. Now, thinking about grammar, you can recommend a noun, like a book, a film, a person. For example, I recommend this cafe.
Recommend plus a noun. Easy.
You can also recommend that someone do something. Notice that we use the base form of the verb here, even in the third person. I recommend that he see a doctor, not sees. Or she recommended that we try the pasta, not tries or tried.
That's interesting. Recommend that someone do something. Like they recommend that she apply for the job.
Exactly. Another common structure is recommending doing something using the ing form. I recommend visiting the museum, or he recommended taking a taxi.
So recommend doing something. Like, we recommend booking your tickets early.
Perfect. So, 3 main ways. Recommend something, noun, recommend that someone do something, base verb, or recommend doing something, ing form.
And how about formality, Eric?
To recommend is very useful and quite neutral. You can use it informally with friends. I recommend this movie. Or in more formal contexts, like writing a letter of recommendation or giving advice professionally.
Great. So, to recommend is to suggest something is good or suitable.
You've absolutely got it, Lisa. And that's our last word for today.
We covered obstacle, to be dedicated, to adapt, barely, and to recommend. Lots of useful language.
We hope that was helpful for all our listeners. Practice using them this week.
Yes. Join us next time for more words.
Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Fluency in English often stems from personal engagement. Sarah, how does self-learning differ from traditional classroom environments?
Independent learning customizes experiences to the learner's interests, unlike classrooms which tend to follow a fixed curriculum. For example, diving into a series like The Crown can spark vocabulary expansion and cultural understanding simultaneously.
But isn't structured guidance crucial for beginners? How might one overcome the initial lack of direction?
True, beginners may feel lost, but online platforms now offer tailored pathways with interactive content. Interestingly, language apps use gamification to maintain motivation, turning this potential obstacle into an engaging challenge.
How do you see the future of language learning evolving with technology?
I envision AI tutors becoming commonplace, providing instant feedback and adapting lessons to align with individual progress. This will bridge gaps traditional methods struggle to address.
Making English a part of daily life is crucial. What practical steps can learners take to weave English into their routines?
Regularly indulging in English music or podcasts is beneficial. Take my friend, who improved her listening skills by tuning into NPR during her morning runs. It turned mundane exercises into insightful sessions.
Are there limitations to this immersion approach, particularly for those juggling multiple commitments?
Certainly, time constraints can pose challenges. However, small, consistent actions like switching your phone's language setting to English minimize the burden while fostering continual exposure.
Do you think daily microlearning sessions could replace traditional study formats entirely in the future?
Possibly, as platforms increasingly emphasize bite-sized content. Incorporating short, integrated English practice sessions could redefine formal study, making it more accessible and less intimidating.
Finding personal motivation is often the driving force behind language success. Can you share insights on sustaining this motivation over time?
Identifying personal goals is key. I recall a student named Tom whose passion for travel led him to master English to navigate global landscapes, thus continually fueling his commitment.
Yet, what happens when initial enthusiasm wanes? Many learners eventually hit a motivational plateau.
Indeed, motivation ebbs and flows. At such times, joining language clubs or engaging in social platforms like Reddit's language forums can provide a sense of community and reinvigoration.
Looking to the future, how might social dynamics impact motivation?
As globalization progresses, the ability to connect internationally will become a stronger motivator. The emphasis will likely shift from necessity to the pursuit of diverse interactions.
Learners often face numerous obstacles. Sarah, what are some common hurdles faced during this journey?
Learners often battle with pronunciation and the fear of making mistakes. A friend of mine joined an English karaoke group, using music as a fun way to practice speaking without judgment.
Are there systemic issues within current teaching methods that contribute to these hurdles?
Absolutely, traditional settings often overlook emotional barriers like fear and lack of confidence. A shift towards more supportive, empathetic environments might better address these concerns.
How might future advancements alleviate such obstacles?
The incorporation of virtual reality could provide immersive experiences, transforming theoretical knowledge into practical success, reminiscent of learning by doing in safe, simulated environments.